I'm Michael Gilman. I'm the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Arrakis Therapeutics. I'm a biochemist by training, was a scientist for many years, crossed over kind of to the dark side about 25 years ago and worked in the biotech industry here in Boston, Cambridge area. And for the last sort of 15 years or so, I've done a series of biotech startups. Leadership means you just have to deal with, kind of whatever dice roll comes up. One thing I've learned over the years about the CEO roles is there is no job description, right? In other words, there is like no box that says everything that you have to do is in this box. You just have to deal with whatever happens. I think it's that people feel like they need to be in control of everything. And in fact, the way you become a really effective leader is to actually let go of stuff. And it took me a long time to figure that out, right? I mean, certainly as a younger person, I was acutely aware of the things that I wasn't good at and felt that they were flaws that I needed to fix in some fashion. But eventually I came to realize that I'm not good at them. I'm never going to be good at them. There are plenty of people out there who are good at those things and I can hire them. And I cannot tell you how sort of liberating, that was for me. And the role of the leader is to, set a broader direction for an organization, to assemble the team, to, sort of to hold the whole picture in your head. But it's not to micromanage the details. I didn't realize that at first, how isolating a job it is. And I mean, it feels like a bit of a first world problem, right? But the fact is that you have no one to complain to, for one thing, right? You can't complain to your staff, you can't complain to your board. I mean, I try complaining to my wife, but after a while, she's just not that interested, right? And so I think that's, emotionally, like a real challenge. Everyone needs to vent from time to time, right? And it's hard to find someone to vent to. And then in addition, which is maybe more the question you were asking, how do you sort of sense check your ideas and your hypotheses and your assumptions? And there, I think the key is really building a management team that whose judgment you trust and who aren't afraid to challenge your assumptions. And I also think it's important to be willing to change your mind when you are presented with new facts. I think that's I think the problem that many leaders have, one of the things that makes a leader a strong leader is a certain streak of stubbornness, right? A belief that they're right when all the world is telling them that they're wrong. But at some point you are going to be wrong. And actually it's important to recognize that and listen. Well, you do have to, you have to learn enough about all of these things so that you understand them. But you really need to recognize that talent in other people, and recognize that these are people that you can trust and can sort of let run with it. And I think in some ways that the sort of overarching sort of piece of advice, you hear this, I think, from time to time. I think it's totally true. Is don't hire people like you. Hire people different from you. They can drive you nuts sometimes, but in the end, you'll have a much stronger organization if it's made up of people who have very complementary skill sets and styles. Mentoring is very important because there is sort of a lot to learn, right? As you sort of grow into roles like this, and a lot of it's not obvious, right? It's stuff that's not written down. It's soft stuff. And I've had several mentors along the way. I mean, if you ask them, they might not actually see themselves as that. Like people who've said things to me in passing that I'm sure they forgot about the moment after they said it, but that really sort of stuck with me. And there was one in particular that I'm thinking about when I was considering basically a career change from academic science to industry. I spoke with a very well-known, Nobel Prize-winning scientist and asked him for his opinion. And what he said to me was, I think you should do this. And I think you should do this because you could do more than you're doing now. And I was actually a little bit pissed off because my initial reaction was, well, what's wrong with what I'm doing now? What I'm doing now is fine. But what I realized is he was telling me two things that I didn't know. One was that going to a company and trying to develop a drug and assembling these multidisciplinary teams was actually a much more complicated job than the job I was doing running an academic lab with graduate students and postdocs. And he was telling me that I had the bandwidth to do it, which I had no way of judging. And that was a really pivotal conversation. I mean, it was over in 10 seconds, but it sort of changed everything for me. Actually, it happened here at Arrakis. A year ago, our founder and chief scientific officer, who I'd known for 20 years, told me that he was trans and was in the process of transitioning. I had no personal experience with that, but now I had to develop that experience and, of course, figure out how to guide this company through, kind of an unusual set of circumstances. And I'm sort of less proud of myself to be an important, an important person in this company, but I actually feel proud of what this organization did to, embrace that change and make it as comfortable as possible for her and not skip a beat at getting the important work done that we're doing here. Because I personally just sort of stumbled into it. I think that it is a combination of sort of assembling a skill set. Because one key to becoming a leader is you have to convince somebody to let you lead, right? And they're going to let you lead based on your track record to a certain extent, right? The things that you've done, the kind of notches you've put on your bedpost, the bullets on your resume. But in the end, successful leadership is actually about the soft skills rather than the hard ones. And I think that some of those can be learned, but many of them are kind of innate. I mean, you've probably heard people say that, everything important that I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. I mean, I think that's true, right? I mean, the key to being an effective leader is being honest with people, being transparent, being clear about your expectations, and clear about when those expectations are and aren't being met.